Hi, in this session of Simplifying and Demystifying Immigration Law, I'd like to discuss the question of how to immigrate your family members. The first thing you have to realize is that there's a difference depending on whether the person sponsoring is a U.S. citizen or whether they're a lawful permanent resident. The difference is this: if you're a U.S. citizen, in some situations, you can do everything pretty rapidly. In most situations, if you're a lawful permanent resident, it's going to take a longer period of time. By that I mean this: there are basically two steps to immigrating a family member. The first is what I call a small step, but a very important step, and a less expensive step. The second one is where you're going to end up going to a green card interview. You're going to have to share and disclose financial information, your income taxes, and a whole bunch of other information. You're going to take fingerprints, you're going to get photographs, but it's the real deal, because at the end of that process is when you would receive your green card. Under the immigration system here in this country, it's broken down into generally 4 categories. Are you trying to immigrate your spouse? Are you trying to immigrate a child? Are you trying to immigrate your parent? Or are you trying to immigrate a sister or brother? Those 4 categories then are divided upon whether or not the sponsor is a citizen or a permanent resident. And there's a certain logic to this system. If you're immigrating as a citizen, a spouse or a child or a parent, you may qualify for doing both steps at one time. We call that an immediate relative process. That means you can move forward immediately to immigrate your relative. There are some situations there where you wouldn't want to do that, however. Other classifications would put you in a different category. There's a first preference, there's a second preference, 2A and 2B, there's a third preference and a fourth preference. And the logic behind that means that the ones that are higher up, the first rather than the fourth, should move quicker through the immigration process. Let's look at some of the differences. If you're immigrating a spouse as a United States citizen, they're an immediate relative. You can move it quickly. If you're a lawful permanent resident, it's gonna take some time. You're gonna have to go through the 2-step process. If you're a citizen and you're immigrating a child, it depends on your child's status. Are they married or not married? Are they over 21 or are they under 21? It makes a big difference. Under 21 has a little bit of preference over those who are 21. And you can see the logic, because if you're a citizen and you're immigrating a child under 21, they're an immediate relative. If they're over 21, then they're under the first preference category. Now, if they're married, they drop even further down into the third preference. So you see the logic behind the system. Under 21 has preference over 21, not married has a preference over being married. Now, that doesn't necessarily work out 100%, because another factor, which I'm not going to discuss at this time, but in a later session, is what country you're from. Certain countries have so many applications coming from that the process is actually slower, when technically under the logical scheme it should go faster. A parent, now look, this is very interesting here too. A United States citizen can immigrate more family members than a lawful permanent resident. Preference given to the citizen. For instance, a United States citizen can immigrate their parent, a lawful permanent resident cannot. A United States citizen can immigrate a child that's married, whether they're over 21 or under, whereas a lawful permanent resident cannot. A United States citizen, brother or sister, can immigrate their brother or sister. A lawful permanent resident cannot. So in those situations, do you give up hope? No. Basically, you want to encourage the lawful permanent resident to go through the naturalization process, become a citizen of the United States. Then they can move into this category and help their other family members. Another factor here is you have to, because we have mixed families here. Is it a straight marriage where husband and wife are married and the children are theirs biologically and on the birth certificate? It could be a situation where they're not married and the father's removed from the household. In that case, you're going to need more evidence, and you're going to have to prove a relationship between the child and the father. But generally speaking, people want to know, can I immigrate a certain family member? This chart explains the system, and hopefully I've been able to break it down, simplify it, and demystify it for you. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.